to deliver his speech in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson, members of this House. It is abhorrent that animals are exploited and animal rights are violated, and it is socially justified right now, and it is even publicly exhibited to citizens in our modern society. It is very repugnant that the animal zoo symbolizes the social narratives that humans have a right and privilege to instrumentalize animals for our own purposes. State has imperative and duty to end this repugnant system and protect voiceless existence. We are happy to proud to propose a resolution that this House ban zoos. I love watching elephants in Ueno Zoo, but I should no longer do that. I'd like to give you 2 arguments from proposition. First of all, exploitation of animals. Secondly, why state has a duty to protect them. Before moving on to arguments, I would like to clarify the model and definition. We would ban all zoos, no exception. Either safari park, aquarium, or any type of zoo should be eliminated from our human society. We, however, think that protection and preservation of endangered species is also important. But that's the role of academic institutions and research institutions. We don't have to commercialize it. We don't have to exhibit to public in the market competition. Let's move on to the first argument, exploitation of animals. Animals are systematically, structurally oppressed and exploited in zoo. No matter what kind of care are provided, no matter what food or equipments are provided, animals are exploited. I will give you a number of structural reasons why it is true. Firstly, animals are physically kept in small cage made with concrete. Originally, animals are born in wild and nature. Especially some animals, like elephants, are social animals. I will take it later, they enjoy coexistence with other elephants as well, but they are separated when they are in young age. They gain traumatization. A lot of stress are provided. And the fact that their activity and behavior are physically and geographically restricted, that situation itself is qualitatively tantamount to torturing and life imprisonment. We shouldn't allow that. Moving on to the second reasons. Before that, I will take you now.
Small concrete cages are not the reality of most zoos. In fact, there are large enclosures. Do you not think you've mischaracterized what zoos are with this over-rhetorical description?
No, I would like to respond to the argument in my second logic, cost cut. This debate takes place in a specific context after the COVID-19, in which the number of visitors is decreasing. That means that a lot of zoos don't have capital or money to provide good medication, and they don't have an ability or financial ability to rebuild the structures and equipments. Only limited number of privileged zoos or rich zoos are able to provide sufficient care, but vast majority of zoos do not have that capital because it costs a lot to maintain infrastructure, electricity, water, amount of food given to animals. Therefore, the reality is, in order to maximize profit, in order to pay salaries to workers, a lot of zoos have no other options but to do a minimum provisions to animals, and that's the reality. Reason number 3, stress. We know that they would say interaction with animal is a great learning experience for a lot of people. No, that interaction itself is the cause of stress. Animals face a lot of physical and mental stress every day. In order to entertain customers, animals are forced to serve entertainment show like a circus or race. The training process itself is also very stressful, but disproportionately stressful for a lot of animals. Why is this exploitation serious in this debate? That is my second argument. My second argument is more principal and conceptual argument. State, government, has a duty to protect voiceless existence. Number of reasons. First of all, animals cannot represent their political interests themselves. For example, infants, teenagers, or mentally disabled individuals, or disabled people cannot represent their political interests. They cannot cast a vote and elect politicians. Animals can't do that as well because they cannot talk to people, right? Therefore, state has to provide proxy defense, proxy protection under the legal system. That is why animals' rights should be legally protected. Secondly, if public exhibition generates a negative perception for social morality, we should abolish and restrict that kind of expression. For example, freak show is abolished because freak show accelerates discrimination and prejudice against certain types of minority. Zoo generates same type of negative and deleterious social harm. We have to abolish it. Thank you.
Every year, millions of people, from the youngest in society to the oldest, gather together to visit animals, animals that they have only ever seen in books or TV or movies. They finally get to come face to face with a lion. They get to see how big an elephant is. They get to see a real penguin flapping about, jumping into the water. This is what we love in society, and we think it is wrong to remove this. I'm going to tell you 2 points today. Firstly, why zoos are important for visitors, and secondly, why they are important for the animals themselves. But firstly, 2 points of rebuttal. The speaker here, the Prime Minister, said that there's exploitation in zoos. We think firstly, this is a very big generalization. In fact, many zoos, if not most, have to comply with certain standards. These zoos work with researchers. They ultimately work to have people come and visit the zoo. If you have a penguin that looks like it's about to cry, or an elephant that doesn't want to come out and see the people, people are not going to visit that zoo. Therefore, the zoo has an incentive to make sure that its animals are well looked after and kept in, yes, cages, but large cages, areas that mimic their natural habitat so that they're able to be happy. Secondly, they spoke about animal entertainment. We disagree with this. We think at most zoos, animal entertainment does not have to exist. People can simply quietly walk past the elephant sleeping, or the lion walking about its cage, or its monkey doing tricks. They don't have to come up to the window and tap it. They don't have to cause noise. So we think this isn't true. Now, on to my main point, why zoos are good for visitors. Ultimately, people can only see these amazing animals in zoos. Many of the animals that you might see in Ueno Zoo, they're not native to Japan. So for many people, this is their only opportunity to see a gorilla up close. You don't see a lion walking the streets of Shibuya, so you have to go to the zoo to see it. And without that zoo, what happens is many people do not have access to these animals. And why is this such a big problem? It's a problem because people do not then fall in love with animals. People do not have an incentive to protect and save animals. Ultimately, going to a zoo inspires an interest in animals. It inspires people to care towards them. So then, when you have money, you think, actually, I should help the elephants that are being poached. I'll take you in 1 minute. The elephants being poached. So therefore, people want to donate money to conservation organizations. They want to help people who are also trying to help these animals and keep them safe from harmful persecution and people trying to kill them. And that will lead me on to my second point, but firstly, the point of information.
But only popular animals are exhibited in zoo. Don't you think consumers or customers will get distorted perception about animals, which is overgeneralized by the entertainment effects enhanced by zoos?
I think lots of zoos now are trying different things. They're trying to bring in different animals, attract different audiences. So maybe, for example, in the past, no one was very interested in reptiles. People thought, well, it's a snake, I don't care, it's a lizard, it's small, I'd rather see the big animal. But actually, what these zoos are doing is they are working with researchers to be able to bring in different types of animals, introduce people to new types of species. So we actually think zoos have an incentive to bring in different types of animals because that will increase the number of people that go and visit that zoo. And we think ultimately zoos are there to make money, so they want as many people as possible. And we think they do that by having a wide variety of species there. And now on to my second point as to why zoos are important for the animals themselves. In this debate, we care most about the animals. We want them to be safe and protected. We believe in a world where all animals are free to be who they want to be without having to fear poachers, fear extinction, fear climate change. And what happens is when you leave these animals like lions or elephants in the wild, they get attacked. Poachers come looking after the rhinos, come after rhinos or elephants for their tusks. What happens here is that these animals are no longer safe in the wild. That is why we need to have them in zoos where they can be protected from extinction. If you look over the past 100 years, so many animals have gone extinct. Our job on side opposition is to protect these animals and create a world where everyone loves and cares for animals. That is why we are proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank ESUJ for coming to Utsunomiya City to hold this fantastic event. And I'm lucky to be chosen as a debater with my another partner, Mitsushio. So, two things in my speech. Firstly, I'd like to rebut what the previous speaker said. Next, I'd like to make our substantive argument how zoos undermine the understanding of animals. So, firstly, they rebutted my partner's argument. But first of all, they misunderstand my partner's argument, right? So, because as my partner explained, most zoos are established by the private sector and with profit-seeking agenda, right? So, and the presence of the zoos is not giving the protection, but rather exploiting the animals by removing them from their natural habitat. So, Utsunomiya zoos are a good example that to create for the animals because it maybe don't have the finance in the first place. It has only the small cages, right? So they misunderstand the reality of the zoos in the first place. Moreover, secondly, they talked about how zoos can create a good concept of the animals, say face-to-face or something like that. But there might be some truth in that argument. But most zoos are for profit and cause a biased image of the animals, especially for the children. So I talk about this point in my speech, in my argument. So let me move on to my argument. How zoos undermine the understanding of animals. So, number one, two analysis. Number one, zoos strive to present extreme entertainment by exploiting the animals, right? In Japan, some zoos have succeeded in attracting the many audiences like Asahiyama Zoo in Hokkaido and Animal Kingdom in Nasu in Tochibi Prefecture. But even if these zoos have the many audiences, but the animals conversely have to do many tricks and perform beyond their nature, right? So, for example, cats have to ride on a ball and or walk on the rope. Normal cats don't do that, right? Dolphins have to jump from the pool and get the ball above it, right? So we believe that the orangutans don't have to walk on the tightropes and to entertain us, right? We believe that penguins don't have to march just for the show business, right? Therefore, these animals are not for the entertainment, and if we keep pushing them to the entertain people, this is just a form of the egoism, right? Number two, zoos cause biased images about the animals that lead to misconceptions, especially for children. Nowadays, people can learn many things about the animals through the media, the internet, and children can grasp how animals can do the behave, move, feed, have babies, and so on and so forth. And it's just the reality of the wildlife, right? But the zoo, please imagine the zoos. Since they are for profit, right? They have some commercial characteristics. That's why people have a misconception about the animals. Please imagine, for example, the children who watch the panda at the Ueno Zoo and in Tokyo, they maybe think that they are very adorable and pretty, right? But in China, please imagine the real panda. A real panda is just a bear, right? And it scratches and punches and kicks, right? And it's very, very dangerous and it's very violent animal in the first place. Also, some audience were attacked by the pandas, right? It scratches, right? So because in the zoos, the animals and zoos cannot reflect the real wildlife of the animals. That's the reality in the zoos. children can learn the animal ecology through the mentioned platforms, not from the zoos, because zoos cannot reflect the reality. For this analysis, zoos undermine the understanding of the animals, giving us a misconception. Why is this point important? Because, as my partner clearly told you, and I'd like to extend my our philosophical argument, let me contextualize today's debate. Both sides concede that the animal rights should be protected, please.
According to your logic, would you therefore ban everyone in society from eating meat? Would you ban people owning pets?
There's a little bit difference between the, eating the animals and showing the animals at the public places. It just stigmatizes the animals, and that's why animal rights cannot be protected on their side of the house, right? But on this point, our side is superior. Because why is that? Number one, animals will return to where they belong and where the nature or the wildlife. They can live as freely as possible. They don't have to be trained by the humans as the egoism. And number two, they will face death and be endangered in their natural habitats, but the survival of the fittest, the principle, this kind of principle will be protected on our side of the house. And we believe that in natural, that without disturbance, no violation, no exploitation. Last but not least, I love cats, I love dolphins, I love pandas, but it doesn't mean that I love zoos. I love zoos because it's a kind of the prison for animals. We are very proud to propose.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. In my speech, I'm going to present to you three things. A rebuttal to the government of how they have grossly mischaracterized what zoos and animal welfare are. Secondly, an argument on the principle of banning something being incompatible with liberal democracy. And finally, why on our side of the house, we maintain all of the benefits of having zoos and can also address all of the harms brought to you by government. So first of all, starting with my rebuttal. The definition included banning safari parks, zoos, and aquariums. I'd like everyone to cast their minds to Kenya. There is a park called the Masai Mara Park. It is a large natural habitat, a preserve of zebras, giraffes, elephants in their natural habitat. It is also a safari park, small sections of it. The animals have all of the space and protection they need. But what's key is it allows visitors to understand the plight of these animals and the problems they face through climate change. And it brings vital income which goes directly towards conservation. We agree that animal welfare is so important, but a ban is not the answer. Checks and balances and regulations are. The first point I want to make is that zoos are integral to research, and it's not the profitability motive we can mitigate against. If their definition were to ban private zoos, this might be a different debate. But it's not. On our side of the house, we're happy to say some zoos ought to be closed down if they don't meet strict regulations. That is not the same as banning all zoos. Just because a zoo exists doesn't mean it will be a horrible place for animals. In some cases, it's actually very positive. London Zoo in London isn't a profit-making enterprise. It's completely charitable. It's run by the Zoological Society of London, which is linked to University College London, where I'm proud to have studied biology. These institutions, in reality, coexist. It's very possible to implement a model where zoos follow this. And then all of the problems of needing to cut costs, creating poor conditions for animals because zoos have to close down, are avoided on our side of the house. Secondly, we might just be in a COVID-19, but there's another crisis also occurring. The climate crisis. it has never, ever been more important to educate people on biodiversity and to encourage them to take on the role of protector of the earth. Zoos are a unique place for this to happen because humans learn best through face-to-face. The debate you watch today will be so much more effective than if you were watching a YouTube video. When you visit a zoo in 1 minute, you learn so much more than you would from other media. And we need to inspire so many people because we do not have the time in the world in terms of biodiversity. Species are endangered, critically endangered. We need this now. Your point.
Do you really think that vast majority of people who visit the zoo will learn about biodiversity and vote for those politicians or party next day? Don't you think that's a realistic characterization of the learning process for vast majority of visitors in zoos?
No, I do not. I think zoos, especially when they're accompanied with universities, can design the experience. We can regulate this through law so that we don't have entertainment, so that we don't have disturbance, so that when we learn about animals, we learn about the poaching or hunting or environmental destruction that Yasmin described. It can be a coexisting learning experience. Finally, on my point about banning things, in a Western liberal democracy, freedom of choice and freedom to act and freedom of the market to operate is a fundamental value. And we both agree we're in a liberal democracy on this side of the debate. To ban something, as I said in my POI, according to their logic, would incur vast restrictions on our freedoms in order to guarantee animal welfare under a ban. However, having strict animal welfare laws, giving law enforcement the ability to close down zoos that don't meet those standards, which we're fine with, is a way that we can achieve safe zoos for animals, protecting their interests, while also encouraging the same benefits from visiting. Thank you.